6 wives, 2 beheaded, a church torn apart, an entire nation held hostage by one man's obsession with a male heir. They called him the father of the English Renaissance. A scholar king, a Renaissance prince who would bring glory to England. But beneath the velvet robes and golden crown lived something far darker. Tonight we unmask the real Henry VIII, a man whose desperate need for control transformed him from a beloved prince into a tyrannical monster who murdered wives, destroyed religious institutions, and terrorized an entire kingdom. This is the story of how absolute power doesn't just corrupt, it devours. To understand the monster, we must first meet the golden boy who captured England's heart. The 18-year-old Henry VIII ascends to the throne, and England rejoices. This is not some aged, paranoid ruler. This is a Renaissance prince in the flesh, standing over 6 feet tall, athletic, handsome, with a sharp mind and natural charisma. He speaks 4 languages fluently. He composes music. He writes poetry. He jousts in tournaments, winning the adoration of crowds. When he marries Catherine of Aragon, his brother's widow, it seems like the beginning of a fairy tale reign. The young Henry is everything his father wasn't, generous where his father was miserly, open where his father was suspicious, beloved where his father was merely respected. Thomas More, the great humanist philosopher, writes that under Henry VIII, England has entered a golden age. This king, he declares, does not desire gold or gems or precious metals, but virtue, glory, immortality. More will later regret those words before Henry has him beheaded, because lurking beneath this glittering surface is a personality flaw that will eventually consume everything. An inability to accept that he cannot have exactly what he wants, when he wants it, no matter the cost. The fairy tale is about to become a nightmare. Henry has been married to Catherine of Aragon for 18 years. She has given him 1 surviving child, a daughter, Mary. But Henry doesn't want a daughter. He wants a son, an heir, a guarantee that the Tudor dynasty will continue after his death. And he has convinced himself that God is punishing him for marrying his brother's widow. Never mind that he needed a papal dispensation to marry Catherine in the first place. Never mind that she has been a faithful, devoted queen. Henry has decided the marriage is cursed, and what Henry decides becomes reality. Or else. Enter Anne Boleyn. She is not the most beautiful woman at court, but she is the most intriguing. Dark-eyed, clever, French-educated, and most importantly, she refuses to become Henry's mistress. If the king wants her, he must make her his queen. For a man who has never been denied anything, this resistance becomes an obsession. Henry demands that Pope Clement VII annul his marriage to Catherine. The Pope refuses. Catherine is the aunt of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, who has the Pope essentially under house arrest. Political reality makes the annulment impossible, but Henry VIII does not accept the word impossible. In a decision that will reshape England forever, Henry does something unprecedented. He breaks England away from the Catholic Church, declares himself supreme head of the Church of England, and grants himself the annulment the Pope wouldn't give him. Think about that for a moment. A man's desire for a new wife leads him to tear apart 1,000 years of religious unity, disinherit his daughter, humiliate his loyal queen, and fundamentally alter the course of European history. This is not passion. This is pathology. To achieve his break with Rome, Henry needs a new kind of servant. Not a nobleman bound by honor or a priest bound by conscience, but a bureaucrat willing to do whatever is necessary. He finds Thomas Cromwell. Cromwell is a genius of administrative terror. He doesn't just help Henry break with Rome, he creates a legal framework that makes dissent treasonous and opposition deadly. Through Cromwell, Henry's will becomes law, and law becomes a weapon. The dissolution of the monasteries begins in 1536. Cromwell's agents spread across England, cataloging the wealth of religious houses, interrogating monks and nuns, documenting every pearl in every chalice. Then comes the confiscation. 800 monasteries, priories, and convents destroyed. Their wealth flows into Henry's treasury. Their residents are cast out. This isn't reform. This is systematic cultural destruction, driven by greed and enabled by absolute power. Anyone who resists faces the new machinery of Tudor justice. Sir Thomas More, Henry's former friend and chancellor, refuses to acknowledge Henry as head of the church. He says nothing against the king. He simply remains silent. But silence is not enough. In 1535, More is tried for treason and beheaded. His head is displayed on London Bridge as a warning. John Fisher, the Bishop of Rochester and Catherine's chaplain, suffers the same fate. He is 76 years old when he climbs a scaffold. The Carthusian monks of London refuse to take the oath of supremacy. They are hanged, drawn, and quartered. Their bodies cut down while still alive, disemboweled and hacked into pieces. Their parts are displayed throughout London. This is the reality of Henry's England. Agree with the king's theological interpretations or die screaming. But here's what makes Henry truly terrifying. He genuinely believes he's doing God's work. He's not a cynical tyrant who knows he's wrong. He's a true believer who cannot conceive that his desires might not align with divine will. The most dangerous monsters are those who commit atrocities with a clear conscience. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. British school children learn this rhyme to remember the fates of Henry's 6 wives. It sounds almost whimsical. The reality is a horror story of psychological abuse, judicial murder, and state-sanctioned femicide. Anne Boleyn, the woman for whom Henry tore England apart, lasts exactly 3 years as queen. When she fails to produce a male heir, giving birth instead to the future Elizabeth I, Henry's obsession curdles into hatred. In 1536, Cromwell fabricates charges of adultery, incest, and treason against Anne. The accusations are absurd. She supposedly slept with 5 men, including her own brother, on dates when she was verifiably elsewhere. But truth doesn't matter in Henry's courts. On May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn is beheaded with a sword in the French style, a small mercy she reportedly requested. Her final words are a masterpiece of controlled terror. "I pray God save the king and send him long to reign over you, for a gentler nor merciful prince was there never. She must praise her murderer even as he murders her." Henry marries Jane Seymour the next day. Less than 24 hours after executing his second wife, he's celebrating his third marriage. Jane gives Henry what he wanted, a son, the future Edward VI. She dies 12 days later from complications of childbirth. Henry will later request to be buried beside her, his true wife, the one who gave him a son and had the courtesy to die before disappointing him. After Jane comes Anne of Cleves, divorced after 6 months because Henry finds her physically unattractive. She survives by agreeing to everything Henry wants. Then Catherine Howard, a teenager married to a 50-year-old king. When evidence emerges that she had romantic relationships before her marriage, and possibly during it, Henry has her beheaded too. She is 19 years old when she dies. Finally, Catherine Parr, who survives Henry primarily by outliving him. She comes dangerously close to arrest when she dares to debate theology with the king, only escaping execution through desperate submission. This is Henry's legacy with women. If you fail him, you die. If you bore him, you might die. If you survive, it's only because you've perfected the art of absolute submission. By the 1540s, the Golden Prince has vanished entirely, replaced by a grotesque parody of kingship. Henry's weight has ballooned to nearly 400 pounds. A jousting accident in 1536 left him with a leg wound that never heals, suppurating constantly, filling his chambers with the stench of rotting flesh. He cannot walk without assistance. He must be moved by mechanical devices. But his physical decay is nothing compared to his psychological deterioration. The king who once prided himself on mercy becomes paranoid, suspicious of everyone. Cromwell, his most loyal servant, is executed in 1540 when he arranges the disastrous Anne of Cleves marriage. The Earl of Surrey, one of England's greatest poets, is beheaded in 1547 for the crime of including royal heraldry in his coat of arms. Henry's court becomes a place of perpetual terror. Nobles arrive each morning wondering if they'll return home that evening. A wrong word, a misunderstood gesture, a hint of disloyalty. Any of these can mean death. The king maintains vast lists of those who have offended him, real or imagined. He broods over slights from years past. His rages become legendary. Objects thrown, servants beaten, threats of execution for the smallest infractions. And through it all, Henry continues to see himself as a righteous ruler, a defender of the faith, a father to his people. This is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Henry VIII, his complete inability to see himself as others see him. In his own mind, he remains the Golden Prince, the wise king, the benevolent father. The corpses, the broken families, the religious persecution, the judicial murders, all of these are, in Henry's view, unfortunate necessities in service of a greater good. On January 28, 1547, Henry VIII dies at age 55. His last words are reported to be, "Monks, monks, monks," perhaps a final hallucination of the religious orders he destroyed, or a guilty conscience manifesting at the moment of death. England breathes a collective sigh of relief. What did Henry VIII accomplish with all his terror and bloodshed? He wanted a male heir to continue the Tudor dynasty. His son Edward VI died at age 15, sickly and weak. The Tudor line ended completely within 2 generations. He wanted to control the church. Instead, he unleashed decades of religious warfare that would tear England apart long after his death. He wanted glory and immortality. He got infamy, remembered not for his scholarship or his early promise, but for his cruelty, his murders, and his tyranny. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Henry VIII succeeded in transforming England. He created the Church of England, which still exists today. He strengthened royal power in ways that would shape British monarchy for centuries. He made England a major player in European politics. The question is, did the ends justify the means? Tens of thousands died in Henry's religious persecution, Catholics and Protestants alike, anyone who disagreed with the king's current theological position. Families were destroyed, ancient institutions were obliterated, an entire generation lived in terror. And all of it stemmed from one man's inability to accept that he couldn't have what he wanted, when he wanted it, the way he wanted it. Henry VIII proves a terrible truth about power. When one person can make their personal desires into national policy, when disagreement becomes treason, when human life becomes expendable in service of royal will, the result is not glory, but horror. 5 centuries have passed since Henry VIII's death, yet his shadow still looms over our understanding of power, control, and the corruption of authority. What makes Henry VIII so terrifying isn't his cruelty. History has no shortage of cruel rulers. What's terrifying is how he began, how the Golden Prince, the Renaissance scholar, the beloved king gradually transformed into a paranoid tyrant who murdered friends and wives with equal indifference. Henry VIII didn't start as a monster. He became one slowly, through thousands of small decisions to prioritize his desires over others' lives, his certainty over others' doubts, his will over any moral constraint. And perhaps that's the most chilling lesson of all, that the capacity for tyranny doesn't require a villainous beginning. It only requires power without checks, desire without limits, and the belief that one's own wants justify any cost. Henry VIII wanted to be remembered as England's greatest king. Instead, he became a cautionary tale about what happens when we give one person the power to reshape reality according to their whims. So I leave you with this. Was Henry VIII's transformation inevitable, the natural result of absolute power? Or could the Golden Prince have remained golden if the checks on his authority had been stronger? What do you think? Hero, villain, or something more complex? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the darkest corners of royal history.